Good morning, welcome to Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. George DiGianni, Train Station Fitness Show. For those of you who are motivated and don't need any motivation from today's show, and you love to run, this show is for you, because what we're going to do, when I say we, I don't mean me, I mean Mo Bro is here, Morris Brosette.
Good morning.
We're going to talk about enhancing your ability to run without injury, to make you more efficient with your energy, and give you some tips that you may not be aware of. Do you know how to properly warm up? That's the one that stood out for me the most.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Out of anything that you've written, not like I know anything else that you've written that I'm aware of, because this is what you do for a living. Morris works at PlayTry in Dallas. And so this is his specialty, and I've not done this before. Usually we have shows about people who don't know how to eat properly, or they do, and they need some tips or exercise advice and just bringing new information to you, but we don't really go for the people who are already motivated, who already exercise,
right,
and give them direction. So I want to start doing more shows like that. And so it just so happens that this is your baby. You run marathons and triathlons, and you do these constantly, and you know about proper recovery and warm up and shoes and so on.
Right.
And so coming up next, what I want to do is we're going to talk with Mo about where you begin. We had a little discussion this morning about whether you should start with the right shoe and what that entails, opposed to what your heart rate is and defining your heart rate and properly defining your heart rate. And do you even know how to do it? Do you have an idea to do it? Are you working with tools that are 20 or 30 years old? Have you changed those tools? And when you run with your buddies, if you do, does your ego get in the way and say, I need to keep up with them, where your body is saying, hey, let's just take a chill pill, let's relax a little bit, let's not run so fast, and it shows up in symptoms. We'll talk more with Morris Brosette, or Mo Bro, or Coach Mo. Coming up next, 703 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket.
FM, The Ticket.
711 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. George DiGianni, Train Station Fitness Show. We're discussing today people who love to run, love to partake in maybe triathlons, marathons, or you just love to run and clear your head. Do you know the right prescription, if you will? Have you had your heart rate tested by a professional? Do you know the right shoe, the right warm-up? And so Morris Brosette is here. Mo Bro, or Coach Mo, whatever he likes to call himself. I've given you a new name.
Thank you.
To set the record straight, because this is what he does. This is his living. This is not only what he does for himself, but he works at PlayTry, and this is where they train people to be their best when they're running marathons or even being part of a triathlon. So where do we start? You have these people that have been running for a long time. Who's this young kid coming in going to tell me that I should change anything up?
Right.
Basically, what you're discussing today, and I know this for a fact, is it comes from the science, the data.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Where do we start?
Well, so the first thing we ask a client, a potential client, or someone that wants to run a marathon, for example, we ask them what their goals are. So what is your goal? Have you done this before?
What are some of the goals?
So,
do people just say, I just want to finish?
Absolutely. 90% of the time, it's I just want to finish.
Wow.
That it's a new goal. It's something that's new and exciting. Maybe they're in their 40s or even older, and now they want to get fit and get in shape. So they want to finish a marathon. So great, that's your first goal. Have you ever run before? Have you ran a 5K? What's the longest distance you've ran? We get that question out of the way. And then the next statement is, okay, we need to get your heart rate zones tested. And that is the first thing we do 100% of the time.
How do you do it? Is it the gas exchange?
No, we don't do gas exchange. We actually do a blood lactate test where we do small finger pricks incrementally on the treadmill. So, because most people that run,
So they're on a treadmill, they're running.
Yeah.
And you try to prick their finger and you miss them, you hit their hand, and how many times do you prick them? 100 times?
It depends on how well they run. No, I'm joking. So, when they do the test, we actually have a protocol where we stop the treadmill, they hop off, and we take a sample. So we build them up. The way that test actually works is we ask them, okay, George, you've ran before. You say you've run. Do you know what the highest heart rate zone you've seen on a treadmill?
3,000.
You're superhuman.
Super, yeah.
And if not, we say, okay, we're going to run to your maximal effort. We build them up over a 15-minute time span, and then we stop the treadmill, have them hop off, we take a quick sample. And then we bring them back down a certain number of heartbeats, and then we bring them back up incrementally over time until...
No, you say you bring them back. I want to interrupt for a moment. You say you bring them back down. What is that based upon? Is it a percentage you bring them down? Is it by age?
It's beats. So let's say, for example, if you run for 15 minutes and your heart rate gets to 180 at the maximum that it's going to get to, So as soon as I take that sample and we recover you, we're going to recover you by 40 beats. So then you're going to bring.
But is that predicated upon age, fitness level, or
No, that's
just
that's
you're
the
that
standard.
high
Yep.
in that period of time? We bring you down by
Yep, we're
40.
going to bring. So if you get up to 160, we're going to bring you down 40 beats.
Got
So
it.
you'll go to 120.
Got it.
And then from there, we work that number back up on the treadmill by 5 beats to 10 beats over the course of another 10 to 15
And
minutes.
is that
or so.
to see how long you can sustain that without jumping up again?
Well, we hold you at a specific heart rate.
Right.
So most people, just because they're not used to running slow and running in the correct zones, if I tell you you need to start running and your heart rate is at 120 to 130 beats a minute, your body doesn't know how to do that. So most new people that do this test end up walking a majority of the test just because they don't have, it's funny, but they don't have the fitness to run slow and efficient. They run too hard, too fast. So,
And then so
their
therefore
body,
you have burnout, you have
Right.
injury, you can't get the distance that you're trying to go.
exactly, because you run too hard, you're not working your aerobic system. You're running more what we call your anaerobic system. So, people don't have to know how to do the test. That's what we do. So, and if you're listening, if you live in the DFW area
The
and you
hood.
want to do this, contact one of us at PlayTry.
Can you prick yourself?
No, you cannot. I mean, you can, but a person, just a lay person, no, absolutely not.
So
Come to
what's
one of
the
us.
self-test look like?
So the self-test, if you don't have the ability to get to a certified
specialist.
center or a specialist, or even most universities do this. If you can go to a kinesiology lab, they know how to do a blood lactate test to get you tested. But
Is it expensive?
it usually costs between $100 to $150 for the test,
How often do you have to do the test?
once every 6 months.
Okay.
So it's nothing that you have to do often. But again, this is what you need to do in order to do this type
to
of
be your
event.
best.
Exactly.
Right.
I
Okay.
mean,
So,
can you get by without it? Yeah, you can, but you're not running efficiently.
so of the 8 steps that you have today to running a marathon efficiently without injury, just finishing the marathon. Number 1 is about being tested, whether it's a self-test or going to get tested, and this is the way you compensate when you hit a certain threshold, if you will.
Yep.
Okay. Number 2,
Get your shoes fit by a professional. That's absolutely.
so you don't go to Macy's
Yeah.
and get they light up and you can skate in them and they make noise. You don't
Right,
get those. Those
yeah.
are not the right ones.
The wheels on the bottom might help a bit though.
They might help. Keep your heart rate down.
That's gonna help. That's gonna help your knees a bit.
Is that good when you're on gravel?
Absolutely.
I knew it.
They've got you. That's the new technology of the Teflon skate or whatever. Anyway, no, and don't go to Foot Locker and get the shiny shoes that are on sale.
You just beat down Foot Locker. We love Foot Locker.
I know we do, but unfortunately,
Dave, stop texting your boyfriend. Does Foot Locker advertise on the station?
No.
We hate Foot Locker.
Oh,
Mo said that.
sorry.
So go ahead.
So go to a running store that
Uh-huh.
specializes in running and get fit by a professional. We've got people that we send to here in Dallas at one of the stores here, and these guys are foot biomechanics specialists. So they know how to fit your foot. They watch you run, they watch you walk, and they ask you the same thing. What's your goal? Are you going to be running? Are you going to be walking? They watch your gait and pattern.
Right.
They say, okay, based upon the way your foot lands, here's the best shoe for you.
So Samantha and I had that done at Luke's. It was Duncan Craig who came in and
That's who we
discussed all
send
of
our
that.
friends to.
Yeah,
That's who we send everyone to.
He is fantastic. Great guy. Really knows what he's doing.
And he's British, so it always makes him sound really smart when he speaks in a British voice.
Yeah. he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I wonder if we sound the same when we go there. Probably
No.
not. So we speak American English. So getting fit for the right shoe. And so when I say Samantha and I went, we don't run, but it's important to have the right shoe at all times. Helps to prevent bunions, helps to maybe slow down the progress of them, so you get that foot proprioception and you grab and
Yeah.
on and on and on. What else with the right shoe that are we looking for? Because many runners might think, well, the higher the gel pack in the back, and I got 6-inch running heels, or
Yeah.
is that the real way to go? If that's meant, is that ever going to be meant for anybody's foot who's trying to run a marathon, or is that so out?
No, absolutely. I mean, you think about it.
No, absolutely means
No,
what?
it could be, yes. That's
Could
what I
be
mean.
what?
It could be good for them.
It could be good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because if you have somebody that has, they have super tight calves.
Right.
Right? They sit at a desk all day, and they just don't have that flexibility and range of motion.
Right.
then yes, and they walk around in dress shoes or business something like, or business shoes.
Sure.
They are walking on a heel anyway. So if you take that person and you put that person in a minimal shoe,
Right.
they're going to completely mess up their calves. I'm saying there's a propensity for them to
Absolutely.
injure themselves. Let
Yeah,
me
and
retract
especially
that.
if you go too fast. instead of,
Exactly.
working
So
into it.
yes, could somebody be in a higher gelled heel shoe? Yes. Could somebody run in a minimalist shoe? Yes, they can, but it depends on that person, what they do, their activity level, and their fitness level.
So when you're running, this may be a little off topic because this show really is for people who supposedly know how to run and run marathons and so on. When you land, are you supposed to land on your heel? I know it's not a sprint. Sprinting is different. You're supposed to land on your heel every time with jogging, or do you land on the ball of your foot and press off?
Well, you land more on the midfoot. You don't want to land on the ball of your foot.
Right, midfoot.
Yeah.
The
So-
ball of the foot's more for sprinting.
Right. And so when I say midfoot, it's hard to. So if I'm standing on my foot and I'm standing on my midfoot, you can't tell just by looking at me if I'm on my heel
Right.
or if I'm on my midfoot.
Right.
It's just a little bit more
Subtle.
Yeah, it's very.
It's
very
almost
subtle.
like what was the book Born to Run?
Yeah.
Where they did a lot of shuffling with their feet. It's
Absolutely.
not the same, but when they land, it was always landing on that
Yeah.
midfoot.
Yeah, you land on the midfoot, and also you take a short stride. So when we teach people to run, we teach them run drills, and this is something that I'll get to in a little bit. But you have to run with proper technique and form. Most people that run, even people that that run often, that haven't been coached by a professional, they run with too long of a stride. And when
So
they
let's get to that in a little bit because I want to
Yeah.
stick with the shoe for a moment. How often do you hear about or see people know of people who are about to run a marathon within 3 or 4 days and they decide to get a new shoe? Is that really, really common, or is it less common today?
It's less common today because people are a bit more educated, but they still do that. Some people still do that because you go to a marathon expo to pick up your packet, and there are vendors all over the place,
Sure.
and they've got these. It's like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
So they've got the best new running shoe that the fast pros are
Right.
using.
So if I'm there and I own this shoe company and I have my vendor's table and I see people come up and I ask them if they're going to run a marathon, and I say, you can do it in those shoes?
No,
You got to do it in my shoes. Put them on right now.
Yeah,
You got to buy them, put them on right now because you're not going to win in those shoes.
Yeah, the vendors
Is that
don't
what
do
happens? Kind
No,
of pressure?
Not at all.
No.
No. I mean, they'll obviously they're going to try to get their shoes out to the market, and they'll tell you, have you run the shoe before, or ask you, have
Right.
you ran the shoe before? If not, you start this after the race. But anyone that's going to be there is going to tell you not to do that. You're not, you don't change within the last 6 weeks before the race.
You talk about sticking with the same shoe. I want to go back to my own experience for a moment with buying shoes. Samantha and I went to buy some shoes after we had success with the first set, and they were out of the type that we walk in, the style and so on. And you one of the things you said is that people should stick with the type of shoe that worked for them. What happens if they're out of production?
If the shoe's out of production?
Yeah, if that style, not just style the way it looks, but the function of the shoe is out of production, then you have to be fit again into something that might not correlate with what makes you most efficient when you run.
Right. I mean, I've really never seen that happen much.
It happened
I
to
can't say-
Samantha, and
Yeah.
she had to buy 4 pair. She bought them all out of stock,
Yeah.
what they had left, just
Perfect.
because they didn't have the same ones that,
Right.
that will be continued. And again, we don't run marathons,
Right.
but it does happen.
Yeah.
And so so you have people who baseball players and other athletes that have these superstitions. Played real well today because I had gum in my hair. Let me put gum in my hair every day. Whatever it is, right? And some people might say, well, I had this running shoe that had these certain laces and a certain color to it. May have nothing to do with function. Are runners just as superstitious about changing the shoe, or are they open?
If you find something that works for you, absolutely they can be. But runners are also, I mean, some are, some aren't. I can't speak for every person out there that runs a marathon or runs a program. I know what I do, and I know what I coach my athletes to do. If you find a shoe that works for you, stick with it. If it's not causing you any injury, if your knees are fine, if your hips are fine, if your ankles are fine, then don't change the shoe. But with that said, if your shoe goes out of production, then the running store should have something to substitute for that. There has to be, and there usually is, another type of shoe that fits that mold. And
Okay.
if you're talking about Nike, Nike's not going to stop producing a popular running shoe. I mean, if there's a shoe that thousands of people are buying, they're not going to stop producing that shoe because that's their market. People are going to continue to buy that shoe. So
what are the shoes that you and I have? Is the Innova?
These are Innovates. I walk in the Innovates,
Yeah.
but I personally run in Ultras.
Right. So we, all three of us here, me, you, and Samantha, have the Innovate. I love them.
I do too.
Absolute,
Yeah.
excellent shoe.
But you have to be really careful with them.
Why?
Too. Because it's what's called, they call it a zero drop shoe.
Yeah.
So, and if you run it on any sort of heel, and this is the thing that
Well, I don't run. I just love
or
the
even
shoe.
if you walk on it. But
Right.
if you wore dress shoes every day to work, for
I don't wear
example,
heels anymore.
Me either.
No.
I stick with wedges.
Yeah, because I had to buy all
So
this
it's
makeup
more
and everything that
smooth,
goes along with the outfit, and the
know,
wigs
it's
weren't
just a
fitting
mess.
right. Go ahead.
But if you have any sort of heel on your foot, and then you walk around in something that's zero drop, that little bit of stretch in your calf can cause some tightness and pain.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I love the Innovates. I love to be as close to the ground as I can be.
Well, they just do push-ups. All right, so coming up next, Mel's going to give you some type of prescription about running. How many, so we'll talk about frequency, we'll talk about duration, and then how to do a proper cool down. We haven't even gotten to warm-up yet, and we'll get to that coming up also. So it's 7:25, Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. The Ticket. 7:33, Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. George DiGianni, Train Station Fitness Show. My good friend, Coach Mo Morris Brosette in the studio. What is it? Eat, feel, good, and play, try, right?
Yes.
What is your website?
It's eatrealandmove.com.
Yeah.
And I've got all the bullet points of what we're talking about today if anyone wants to go check it out.
Go to Mo's website, eatrealandmove.com. So I want to go backward for a moment. Shoes. How do you know when to get a new pair of shoes?
Typically, it's about 6 months. Of
6
running.
months. Now,
Yeah.
you say 6 months, and other people have said a certain amount of hours, like
Yeah.
5 hours per week or something like that.
Yeah.
And so how do we know? Because aren't there different intensities in running versus not running? And you wear them on grass and different,
Yeah.
ground.
But, so typically what we do with most people, especially if you're running a marathon, I mean, you're not going to be running that much of that much of an intensity.
Right.
You are when you're doing intervals. But what we'll typically tell people to do is just keep the box or write on the inside tag the date you bought the shoe.
Yeah.
And then just to keep it safe and simple so you don't have to keep up with miles. People have too much stuff to do already.
Yeah.
The last thing they need to do is log the miles in
Right.
something to keep track. So
Samantha tells me that, all she has to do is put my shoes in the washer and the dryer, and then they're new again. That's not it?
no,
Oh.
that's not it. Do not put your shoes in the dryer.
Don't do
ever.
that.
I
They fit tighter and everything. Makes me think that they're new
Right.
again.
Yeah.
No,
You-
so if they're clean, they're not new after 6 months.
No, they're not.
All right.
But typically after 6 months, you're going to start losing the cushion in the bottom. So just write the date of the day you bought them.
Right.
And then when you finish with the shoe, we recommend you have a pair of training shoes, and that's the shoes that you train in. So when you do your runs, you put those shoes on. As soon as you finish your run, you take those shoes off and put them away. Wash them, but don't put them in the dryer. So 6 months, you get a new pair because of that breakdown.
Right.
So that's just the easiest way to have people do it. It's kind of mindless. They can, if they put their shoes in the closet, they can put a little sticky note or post it right above it. Bought the shoes on October 1st. So we know 6 months later they need to buy new shoes.
Okay. We're discussing today the 8 steps to help you run a marathon most efficiently without injury. And Mo has gone through the first 2 so far. How we're going to get through the rest, I don't know, but because Mo's been screwing around the entire show. So we're going to get to number 3 right now. Number 3 is start slowly. What does that mean, start slowly? Other than the literal sense. Is that it?
Yes. So this has to go. I need to go back to the heart rate zones. So once you get the heart rate zones tested, because you've got them tested now, what in the world do you do with that? Most people run too fast, and that's what I was talking about earlier. So when I say start slow, everything you do with running, after you get those heart rate zones tested, that's how you run. You don't run by pace, you run by your heart rate zones. So for example, let's say, and we call this your training pace. If you're training for a marathon, if you're going on an hour run or a moderate to easy effort run, that's called your training pace zone. All right, we keep it simple. So for example, yours might be 130 beats to 150 beats. That's your zone. But most people, because we're type A and we want to do good, we like to teeter on the edge and run at 149 to 150. You're running too hard and too fast.
Right out of the gate.
Yes,
Right.
you're running too hard, too fast. Okay. So the sweet spot of that is usually we encourage our athletes not to go within 5 beats of the top of that zone. So if I know the top of my training pace zone is 150 beats per minute, I keep it between 140 to 145 max.
Wow.
So that's
you're
where-
constant. No, well, maybe not. I was going. The first thing that goes through my mind is that you're constantly adjusting throughout the entire marathon or run, whatever that is for you. Is that true? Are you constantly adjusting, or are you used to identifying what your body feels like, and you only have to look every once in a while?
Once you get to the marathon, yes,
Yeah.
your body is used to it. But in training, yes, you have to slow down your pace. You might have to walk a bit, and that's the biggest hurdle for people to get over. Is look, leave your ego at the door. You have to run by your heart rate zone in order to be efficient. Because what happens is, if you have a goal of running an 8-minute mile pace, but you're running at 145 beats per minute, and you're running at a 10-minute mile pace, that's not your goal. But that's where your body is most aerobically efficient. So what happens is, over time, over that 6-month period to 8-month period when you're training, you're going to be running at 145 beats per minute. But instead of running a 10-minute mile, you're going to start running at a 9:45 pace, and then you're going to run at a 9:30 pace. So then eventually you're running at the exact same heart rate, but your body has just gotten so much more efficient because you're not stressing it out, running too hard, and you're running at a faster pace at the same heart rate.
So you talk about starting slow. That was one of the part of the definition. What about frequency?
Yeah, well,
Days
hold
per
on. So
week?
starting slow, you have to warm up. So warming up
So
is
now that's
critical.
number 4.
Right. Well,
So we're finished with number 3.
No. So start slow. That's what you have to do. Yeah, we'll get back
Right.
into that. So 20 minutes, 3 days a week for most people that start doing this. Because again, people go too hard too fast, and that's where the injuries occur.
Right. So now we're getting to number 4. Number 4 is warm up
Yeah.
and cool down. So I think everybody should know the importance of stretching for 18 hours before you run. Make sure you just stretch and do a lot, stretch, make your joints really
Yes,
loose
yeah,
and
limber.
compromise the integrity of the joint before you run. I
Yeah.
still see this every single day.
Oh, yeah.
Or every time I see a runner, rather,
Yeah.
who's beginning, whether it's on the treadmill or out in public, they're always stretching first.
Yeah, they run for about 30 seconds, then they hop off on the side of the treadmill, grab their foot, and just yank it back towards their butt, because that's going to help.
Yeah.
No, because
They're in a
what hap-
routine.
right? But because we've talked about this, what happens when you stretch and when you do some sort of passive stretch, you're actually weakening the muscle.
Absolutely. Well, you're weakening the joint and weakening
Exactly.
the muscle. Therefore, you don't get that spring that you're looking for. You slow yourself down, and it also can cause, and has shown in studies, to cause injury. So, have you ever seen a cheetah stretch before it's going to kill its antelope? Well, hold up. Don't move. I see. I know you know I'm coming after you. Just let me stretch before you run. Don't go anywhere. Let me stretch first, and then I'll catch you and eat you. It doesn't work that way. You say, well, George, we're not cheetahs. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If we have all of a sudden our child is going to run on the street and there's a car coming, you don't say, car, can you just hold on? I just stretched before I'm going to go explode and run after my child and save my child's life.
Right.
The body was meant to have this explosive move voluntarily or involuntarily. The problem is if you sit most of the day or you don't exercise and you go to perform this explosive move, or you only do this paced training,
Right.
and there's no strength training involved,
Right.
you're more likely to become injured.
Exactly.
So when we talk about the warm-up, I think out of this entire show, that really hit me the most. What I know about stretching and how people are actually hurting themselves, even before you do strength training. Never stretch. If you want to stretch afterward.
Right.
So what is the warm-up process? This, to me, I think, for people listening that do like to run, I feel it's the most important. I don't run, what the hell do I know? But I think this one's the most important.
Right. So what we have people do is foam roll.
Foam roll.
Foam roll, self-myofascial release. That's a great way to naturally increase the range of motion without passively stretching.
So tell people what the roll is.
what the
It
roll
could,
is?
Well, it could be a foot in length. It could be 3 feet in length, and you're laying on this, and you're actually rolling out certain parts, certain muscles.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to give them a picture.
I got you. Yeah. So I mean, if you have typically we'll use a foam roller, and it can be a long one, a short one. You can use a trigger point, anything like that. I've had people use rolling pins before. So
Honey, while you're baking, as soon as you finish with that, I don't care about the flour. Come over here, roll my leg.
no, it's funny, but there's a foam roller called the Rumble Roller, and it has these little knobbies. It looks kind of like a mud tire, but a foam roller. It's like the redneck foam roller.
Right.
It's awesome.
And what does this do? Why do we want to do this as part of the warm up?
Well, what it does, it releases the fascia, the fibrinogens, and the scar tissue that's accumulated from when you work out and when you run.
People often correlate, I think, scar tissue with a trauma.
Yeah.
You got cut, which is
exactly.
true, but it's not limited to that.
Right, exactly. So we're increasing our range of motion. We're increasing blood flow to the area. So we foam roll our calves, we foam roll our quadriceps, we foam roll our glutes.
Hips.
Those in our hips. Those are the typical tight areas for running, because when we run, then we go to work and we sit. So we're exacerbating tightness. So we spend about 5 minutes foam rolling, and then we spend another 5 to 10 minutes doing run drills or a dynamic warm up or a combination of those two. And easy paced running. So if you go to a marathon or if you go to a triathlon and you look at the professionals, they're doing run drills. I love seeing it still, right? You look at Usain Bolt, the fastest man in the world. What's he doing before he runs 100 meters? He's doing run drills on the side of the track.
Plyometrics.
Exactly. So
Right.
he's getting his body ready. So you're getting your body ready for the activity. Even if you're going to go for an hour or even a 30-minute easy-paced run, you still need to warm up and get your body ready for the movement.
So it's the same kind of picture, if you will, when you're in the gym, you're about to do anything with, let's say, your chest muscles, right? And you want to do dumbbell chest press or even whatever. You can start with push-ups or you can start with a lighter weight. So if you normally can bench press 135 pounds, you would start most likely with a bar of 45 pounds to get your muscles adapted to that movement, and then you add more weight to it. And it's the same thing with running.
Yeah.
You're starting slower, you're doing the foam rolling, right?
And
you move a little faster, do
Exactly.
some plyometrics, and then your body's ready for that intended
And then you
goal.
start, but then
Right.
you start slow. So
Sure.
what I was talking about earlier, if I'm gonna run at 145 beats per minute, I know that's my sweet spot. I do my 5 minutes of foam rolling. I do my 5 minutes of dynamic movements and some run drills. Then I start my run in the warm up. So I'm gonna go from 100 beats a minute, and I'm going to walk and get it up to 115, then 120. So over the course of the next 5 minutes, I'm bringing myself up to that 145. So that's the other thing, is make sure when you start running, you don't go right to 145.
Right.
So you have
So
to
let's
build into
with
it.
that said, let's go to number 5 real fast because we really want to I want to get all of these in.
Yeah.
People run too often. Why is this? Is this just dangerous? It makes you. It's more prescription for injury.
It is, because the average person didn't grow up a runner and they don't have the proper run form and technique.
What if they think they did? My father was a runner. I'm a runner.
Right. Well, that's the common misconception. That's why you have a coach like myself to reel you in and keep you from injuring yourself. So I've run 5 marathons now. 4 of those have been after a 2.4 mile swim and a 112 mile bike. The most I've ever ran is, I think 2 weeks I ran 4 days a week. But all of my training, I run 3 days a week.
So we really need to appreciate, which we've discussed in the past, hopefully we'll get to today, the recovery process that makes
Exactly.
us a better athlete or makes us do what we want, whatever the intended goal is, better.
Yeah.
When we're recovering, it's actually like a form of working out, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, so number 6, 7, and 8 coming up next with Mo. We're talking about how to run your best marathon or just run long distance without injury, most efficiently. With Coach Mo, eatrealandmove.com, 745, Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. 753, Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. George DiGianni, Train Station Fitness Show, here with Morris Brosette, Coach Mo. Eatrealandmove.com is his website. He'll have all of these listed on his website, he said today. We're discussing how to make you a better runner, more efficient runner, one who experiences less injury, and what those steps are to take today. We've given you a whole host of ideas. We're on number 6 right now, interval speed training in hills.
Yes.
Talk about that. Is that for someone in the beginning or someone who's already a runner and just needs to change it up?
Both.
Okay.
For both. Because what happens is you basically, in a sense, become a one-trick pony or one-speed person. So if you're wanting to run, and you're time crunched, you have to get a certain load in. So a load or intensity to be able to handle the distance of the marathon. So if you have someone that's working 40 hours a week, plus they have a family, they don't have the time to go do it. Plus, their bodies can't handle that long time. So, one, speed work intensity in hills is going to give you the load of running more, running longer. So the other thing is,
Are you trying to, I want to make sure we get these important points in. It's very important. When you say that, you're not giving much explanation, and I know where you're going, because what you're doing is you're saying that from an aerobic point of view, your body will be able to help you to run longer periods of time by doing these more intense drills, because it takes a longer period of time during the recovery phase, which we will discuss in a little bit, to become aerobic again, so you become more fit. It's
Yes.
kind of give more detail about that.
Yeah, well, the bigger thing with the intervals and speed training is it's going to help you run faster.
Right.
Which at the end of the day, the less time you can be on your feet in the marathon, the better. So running hills, because when you run a marathon, you're never going to find a super flat course. There's always going to be a hill, or there's going to be some wind, which is going to emulate a hill. So it's going to help you run more efficiently on race day. So doing speed interval work, again, that's going to help increase that load factor. Because if I'm doing a track workout or a speed workout training for a marathon, and I'm only running for 45 minutes, but I'm running super hard, and I'm running at my what's called your VO2 max effort, that's going to increase my fitness. It's going to increase my power, but that also directly positively affects your aerobic capacity and ability.
Right.
So that'll help me run more efficiently when I'm running at that slower pace.
So that's why they have a Boston Marathon, not a Colorado Marathon.
Yeah, well, they have Colorado marathons too, and those are
Intense.
Yeah.
So let's go to number 7, functional strength training, cross training.
Yes.
Look, Mo, I want to run. Don't want to make myself bulky and slow with strength training. I feel really tight. Why do I want to do strength training? Why does it have to be functional training?
And I feel like we kick this horse to death, but we have to keep
we
talking
haven't.
about it. We just have to keep talking about this. You're not going to get bulky. You're not going to get big. So that's done.
Especially the rep range that you've discussed in the past. Or
Exactly.
we've discussed. Go
Exactly. But running creates and can create overuse injuries and overuse. You're running in one plane of motion. You're doing a repetitive motion over and over and over again, multiple times a week for months at a time. You have to work the opposing muscle groups for balance, just for
so
symmetry.
a tennis player is forward, backwards, side to side.
Right. But it's the same thing. Like if you're a personal trainer, you don't go in the gym and coach somebody or train somebody to do chest all the time. They have to do the
Why?
back. Because they don't work their back, they're going to have a postural issue. Same thing with this. So with running, and a lot of the issues that come along with running, your knees hurt, your back hurts, it's because of the weaknesses and imbalances. So functional strength training, specifically strengthening your glutes. Because most people, after they finish their run, they go sit in a desk or they sit in a car. So you're effectively shutting off your glutes. So your glutes are what are in charge when your foot strikes the ground and controls where your knee goes. So if your glutes are weak, it's just setting off this whole negative chain from your foot up.
Also, by the way, for people who have bunions, you may have experienced this or recognized that if you have bunions, you most likely have a not only a gait issue, but when you land, you'll see your knees turn in or they might turn out a little bit and your foot drops. And a lot of this comes from weak stabilizers, especially around the hips.
Yep.
We have to move to number 8.
Yep.
We only got a minute and a half or so. Recovery.
Absolutely. This is the most overlooked part of the process.
And I don't think people even appreciate it for those who know about it. They think, okay, the next day I feel like I should run.
I felt good, so I did another run.
Right, or I should run.
Yeah,
right. There's that should.
Yeah, because there's always somebody across the street that's running more than you are, so you think you need to do more. But it's just like weight training. You don't lift every day. When we run, we break ourselves down. So you have to rest and recover in order to build strength and grow and increase your fitness. So taking the proper recovery steps. I've got this all listed on my website right now. Just go to eatrealandmove.com and look at the recovery protocol. But you have to recover. That is the most overlooked part. You need to do, that's when if you want to stretch, you can stretch. But using cold, cryosauna, cold contrast showers, compression socks or leggings, all these things are great.
Just steal those from your pregnant wife?
I did.
Yeah.
All these things are great forms and modalities of increasing and speeding up your recovery process. But
which gets you out there running or exercising, whatever that is.
Right, because again, we're the society of, if a little bit's good, then more is better. So
Right.
I need to run more because this guy's running more. No, run smart, train smart, get with a qualified professional coach to help you and guide you along the way, because that's what we do, is
Right.
get you to that goal safely. We want to get you to your goal safe. But yeah, recovery. If you don't recover, you're an injury waiting to happen.
Craig, you want to come in? Come on. Recovery.
Yes.
Tell people how they can test themselves for whether they're recovered or not. This is very important.
There are tons. There's
Just give them one.
Heart rate.
There you
If you're running and you overtrain and you're used to running at 145 beats per minute and you can't get your heart rate to 145 beats per minute, and say you're running, you feel like you're running a sprint and your heart rate is low, you're overtraining and you're under recovered.
And also, if you're tired the next day, you're lethargic.
If you're lethargic, if you don't sleep well,
Right.
if you're doing your training and you start to notice that you're waking up in the middle of the night,
Right.
you're not recovered. You're training
Good.
too much.
Mo, thanks for coming on the show and giving us this type of information. In the future, what I'd like to do is continue to have Mo come on and talk to the people who actually don't need the motivation to exercise, rather the guidance of which type of exercise or how to support their already fitness regime, if you will. So Craig's in the studio. Craig,